Infinity Genealogy. My name is Aliyah Diani, and I am here to talk about cousins. Who are our first cousins? Who are our first cousins once removed, twice removed, etc.? And so let's get started. If you are new here, welcome. If you are returning, thank you so much for coming back. I'm so happy to have you here today. So, right now we're on our website, and I want to go to the genealogy course. So I have a genealogy course here that's going to get a little bit into some of the topics that we're going to talk about today. And so if I say anything today that sparks your interest, that you want to learn more about, please register for this genealogy 101 course. So again, I'm going to play a little bit of the first class. So in the first class, this is an older video, but the content is still the same. I really want to highlight the importance of knowing what generations mean in the context of genealogy, family trees, family history, all of that. Though the definition I provided is not the best, but it is going to be our starting point. Okay? So when we are talking about this my cousin chart, who is my cousin, what's my second cousin, first cousin once removed, all of that, think about the generation you are in. Who are your parents, right? They have siblings. And if your siblings have children, that is your first cousin. Y'all are part of the same generation. Y'all share a grandparent or grandparents, right? That is key. Think of it as who did I come here with and what is everyone's generation. Okay? So please, as we talk about, and I'm going to show you a few different charts. I love to provide different charts just because different things resonate with different people. So I always want to give you all the option, and I want you all to make meaning for yourself. I'm just giving the resources. After that, you do what you do. Also, as I go through some of the other pages, I recommend that you create a resource list, whether it's a Google Docs, your own Word document, in your notes, whatever. Because as you continue to do research and family history and genealogy, you may go down a rabbit hole and you may not always be able to go back and find that link that you needed. So whenever you're doing this, please make sure you copy the link over somewhere, or you can even write it down, or you can have it in multiple places. But please keep that somewhere because it's important and you can always refer back to it when you need it. So let's get back on track. Generations. Remember, when we are looking at our cousins and first cousins, we have to think about what generation they're in. And so when I did a quick Google search and I went on to Reddit, when I did a Google search, Reddit is one of the top searches. And someone asked, like, what is this? I don't understand. Can somebody explain this to me in a simple way? And so I love the response here because that's really what it is. This is the simplest form for us to understand. You have your first cousins. You all share a grandparent or grandparents, right? Your second cousin, you all share the same great grandparents. And then we're going to keep looking at different charts. So starting here with Family Search, they have a blog series. And we have the cousin chart, how to calculate family relationships. And so here is the step-by-step. So identify the grandparents you and your cousin share. And then you move forward. So when you look at this chart initially, it may look overwhelming and it's like, what is this? All I see, is different shades of green. It's some black letters and white letters. Like, what is going on? So let me refocus your eyes. Start here. See at the corner and just go diagonal. All the way down to your 11th cousin. Okay? Again, it's about generations and connected. Think about who are you directly descending from? Who is that connector to all of your other family members, right? Because again, we come from a few people, and those few people come from people who come from people. But who is that person that's connecting us to the past? Think of it in that way as well. I think that may be helpful. So, yes, you may have a fourth cousin, But how are y'all fourth cousins? Who is that person? See, you go back up here. It says identify. That word is key. Identify who is that person that's connecting our relationship in this family. And if it's your grandparent, you both of you or whomever, you all have the same grandparents, that is your first cousin. Okay? Then let's go down where it says second cousin. That means we share great grandparents. So an example would be, okay, so my dad, he has his first cousins, which will be my first cousin once generation removed, but their children is going to be my second cousin because no matter what, we still share a great grandparent. All right, let's go to third cousins. We share a second great grandparent, fourth cousins, third great grandparent, and so on and so forth. Again, identify that connecting piece. Let's go on to another chart. Let's see what ancestry. So first ancestry explains like what is a second, third, fourth cousin, and then the latter part of this article is what is a cousin removed, right? So again, we're thinking about thinking of everything in generations. So your first cousins, we share grandparents, counting back 2 generations. And there's a shared or a common ancestor. A lot of times you will see, especially on ancestry.com, you'll see shared or common ancestors. You will hear and see those language being used interchangeably. So remember, we started off talking about everything in generations. So here's you, right? Here are you in the blue, and then here's your cousin in this pink color. And it's teal and pink, okay? So this is y'all's generation. So all of the other, this is your generation. The generation before you is your parents, right? Then the generation before them is their parents, which is our grandparents. So always look at it as starting with you. That is another important part. First, I will say is know that everything's in generations. The second part is start with you. Because when you start with yourself, you're able to know who's who moving forward. Because you know where you stand. You know where you fit in this tree. You know where branch you're coming from. Because many of us, we either have experience or we know our parents and our grandparents. So just knowing those little bits and pieces, that can help you build on your tree and really get deeper into those roots. Because some of us may not have had a relationship with our great grandparents or seen them before, and not our second great grandparents and so on. So we have to start with our lineage that is closest to us. Our, that's right there. When I look in my mother's face, I'm like, I can ask my mom, like, Mom, who is your mom? My grandmother on that side is still living. So I know I can ask her, all right, Grandma, what was your dad like? What was your mom like? Because I didn't have that opportunity to experience them. So you always start closer to home. You start with yourself, then your parents and your grandparents. Okay, now let's move on to second cousins. So now that we know first cousins share a grandparent, and I want us to look at the little numbers on the left side of each of these 3 columns. So see, it's us here, then we have a 1 and we have a 2. So this is the first generation. We're starting down and going up. Remember, we're going up. So we have ourselves, the first cousins, we have our parents and our grandparents. The second quote unquote generation is going to be our grandparents. The first generation is going to be our parents. Okay, these are arbitrary numbers to help us explain this chart and what we're talking about. This does not mean 1, 2, 3. Oh, this is generation 1. This is generation 2. No, just for this example. Okay, moving on to our second cousins. Again, we're starting with ourselves here. We have our parents in that first here. We have our grandparents in that second, and then our grandparents' parents. This is that next generation before us. And so our second cousins, we share that great grandparent. Remember that example I gave earlier of my dad's first cousins? And then they children had children. And we are all, this is my second cousins because we share a great grandparent. And then moving on to our third cousins, they count back 4 generations. So again, these numbers mean to count back. These are, again, this is not this is generation 1, generation 2. Nope, we're counting back generations. So again, that's why I said we have to start with knowing what a generation is, and we have to start with ourselves and count back. So we have our parents, we have our grandparents, we have our great grandparents, and we have our second great grandparents. All right, now that we sort of know what a first, second, third cousins and so forth are, let's go on to the removed part. This one is a little bit more complicated, but once you keep in mind the generation part, it should be easy to go. All right, so let's start with us, right? We have our parents and we have our grandparents. We're going to stop right there, all right, because that's important. So this is us in this row. So we have our parents, which is that counting 1 generation back, and our parents have a parent or have parents, right? Which is our second generation back. So we have our first generation back from us, second generation back from us. So, So here we have grandparents. Now remember, our grandparents had kids. So they had our mom. I'm going to use my mom for example. My grandmother and grandfather had my mom. My grandmother and grandfather had my aunts, I have 2 aunts and I have 3 uncles, okay? I'm saying all of them have children. So all of the children of the aunts and uncles, now we are first cousins because why? We share a grandparent, okay? Now let's say my first cousin, so I'm going to use an example. So I have a first cousin. He's the oldest of us. His name is Thomas, right? So we have Thomas. He's my first cousin. Now, he has children, right? So, they're going to be my first cousin once removed because we're not a part of the same generation, although we share the same bloodline. We share the same direct descendant. The direct common ancestor. We are a direct descendant of them. We share a common ancestor. But I call them grandma. They call them Gigi. So to me, that's just my grandma. But to the cousin that's once removed, that's Gigi. That's their great grandmother. So that removed part means we are not a part of the same generation. Although we share a common ancestor, a common, I don't want to just say ancestor because they may be living, but we share a common family member that is key to who we are, a more direct ancestor. But we call them different things. Like they, in relation to us, they mean different things. Again, to me, that's my grandma. To them, that's Gigi. That's their great grandma. Okay? And so say my cousin's here. One of my Thomas's kids' name is Little Thomas or Nyla, either one. So I'm going to use Nyla. She's the oldest. So then we have Nyla here. Say when Nyla has a child, now that's going to be still my first cousin, but twice removed. Because see where I am here? I'm 2 generations away from them. Or they're 2 generations behind me. So again, that generation is so important. When you look at this chart, see the different color grays that lead all the way to black? That's what's going to help you know, like, okay, they all go together. This all goes together. Where I am with my cousins, we're all there. Don't get me wrong, we are all cousins. But the relationships are different. Okay? Okay, let's move on. Let's just go over. So now we have the great grandparent. So that is my grandmother's sister. My grandmother has many siblings, but I'm going to go with my Aunt Bert. Okay? So this is my great aunt, which is my parents. That's just their aunt because that's their mom. My grandmother is their mom, and that's their mom's sister, right? So when Aunt Bert has a child, to me, in relationship to me, that's my first cousin once removed because that's my parents' first cousin. sorry, excuse me, I had to pause. I think I said that wrong. So, in relationship to me, sorry, they're my second cousins because we share a great grandparent. Okay, let's go back. Make sure I said that correctly. See, this is why I don't like these charts, but we're learning together. I have no shame in saying I made a mistake because we're doing this together. So again, this is my grandparent. This is their sibling. So this is okay. That's right. So this person, when my uncle or aunt has a child, this is still my parents. This is their first cousin, but that's going to be my cousin once removed because we're not of the same generation. I said that. I was fine. We're not of the same generation. This is my first cousin once removed. It's just my parents and my aunts and uncles. That's just their first cousin. But for me, they are a generation ahead of me. All right. So now when that cousin, so I have my Aunt Bert here, my Aunt Bert here. That's my grandmother's sister. Then she has a son, Sean, right? Say when Sean has a child, Sean's child is now my second cousin. Why? Because we share a great grandparent. Because my grandmother and their grandmother are siblings. All right. So when we talk about our parents and aunts and uncles, so Aunt Bert, her son Sean, that's my mom, and my aunts and uncles, that's their first cousin. Okay. So I think we sort of got the gist of it. Again, these things can be confusing, but always remember it's about generations. Generations, and start with yourself. I said that about 3 times already, but I really wanted to emphasize that. I don't remember if I showed this chart or not yet, but here's just another example, just explaining it again. So this one starts with your great grandparents, not just starting with grandparents, but your great grandparents to really hone in on that second cousin conversation. Shout out to Roots of Branches. Here you have your grandparents, right? And you see this little red line? Everything from your grandparents down, this is you. This is our grandparent, is our direct ancestor for this, right? When we're just talking about cousins removed and honestly all of it, right? But so we have our grandparents, and this is like their direct descendants. And so when you go up to your great grandparents, they are the siblings of your great aunt or your great uncle, all those things. And so when you think about your second cousins, again, you have those who are in the same generation. Y'all share a great grandparent. But then when they have children, and then when they have children, it keeps going. So just remember, where are you? I see a few typos on here, so I'm not going to continue. But when you start with you and you go up or you go down, just remember, where are you in the generation? How are you all connected? I always say that. How are we related? How are we related? Who is our common ancestor? Who is the common family member that connects us all? Okay? So I hope that was helpful. This video was actually longer than I anticipated, but I just want to say thank you all for being here today. I hope you learned something. Again, if you are interested in this course, or if you're interested in anything we talked about today, please register for the course. I hope to do a sale soon, so I hope you catch this at a good time so you can enjoy that sale. Thank you all so much. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. I hope I explained it in a way that resonated with you. If not, let me know in the comments. I will share, type in the comments, or I will upload a new video for us to really have that conversation. So thank you all. Hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.